kindness without strength is irrelevant because you're not kind. You're just meek. You're just weak. Okay. Where's the virtue of you being kind if you have like no agency and no ability and you're just a harmless mouse? There's no nobility there. Strength without restraint, though, is absolute chaos. And that's never good for you, for your family, or for society. And the solution to this issue of masculinity is not less masculinity. The solution is better men, more masculine, better men. That's what's going to make society better. That's what's going to help everybody. Hey, hello everyone, and welcome. This is Gonzo Herrero with Rise 41, your podcast host, and on today's video essay or thoughts or video that's guaranteed to tick some people off for sure. Hopefully some interesting subject matter regarding human optimization and so forth. So today's topic, an important one in today's society, and it is this. It's the masculinity debate, strength, responsibility, and optimization. And also, so why modern society punishes competent men and rewards comfortable weakness. That's a deep topic, and I know it's going to be divisive. Potato. But let's dive in because I do have some thoughts that I'd like to share. And if nothing else, this would invite a healthy, hopefully constructive debate as to the role of masculinity, true masculinity in today's society and what's going on, what's happening. So again, please, comments, questions, anything you want to talk about, put it in the comments. I'll answer. And if you want to debate me, if you agree, disagree, tell me why you agree, tell me why you don't agree. But let's dive into this very important topic. So again, and just to start fresh and clearly, this is the masculinity debate: strength, responsibility, and optimization. So first, as a matter of intro, just to set the stage, as I usually try to do in these video essays, the thing that everyone feels but won't say, and let's say the quiet part out loud. Modern society is not confused about masculinity. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. What's happening is that modern society is afraid of it. And let me be clear. I'm not talking about abusive masculinity. I'm not talking about violent masculinity, because those are really convenient straw men for people who don't like masculinity as a whole. What society is afraid of is men who are physically capable, psychologically stable, difficult to shame, and unwilling to outsource authority. Okay? That's the real issue. These are men who don't need permission from society, because men like that are very hard to control. So instead of training masculinity, society pathologizes it. So instead of disciplining male energy, it tries to suppress it. Instead of teaching men how to carry that power, that potential for violence responsibly, it tells them power in and of itself is immoral. And here's the cost. This is what we're seeing nowadays. Men are more medicated than ever. They're more distracted than ever. They're more isolated than ever. They're more addicted than ever. And somehow, men are still blamed for everything that goes wrong in society. Everything. So this episode, let me be clear about this episode and this essay. This is not going to be like an apology tour or making excuses, okay? This is an autopsy, all right? Because masculinity didn't like suddenly become toxic. It became untaught. So, okay, so let's go point by point as I explain my viewpoint and my thoughts on the matter. So the first point, masculinity is not an identity. It is a burden that you carry. So what do I mean by that? So masculinity is not a vibe, okay? It's not like a thing, like a vibe that you feel. It's not self-expression. It's not how you feel about yourself. That's not masculinity. Masculinity is, in plain words, load-bearing capacity. And what do I mean by that? So historically, masculinity was measured in one very brutal way. When everything falls apart, when there's a crisis, when shit hits the fan, are you an asset or are you a liability? That's it. It has nothing to do with your politics, with your religion, with your philosophy, or any of those things. Again, not your politics, not your intentions, even, not your trauma. It's all about 100% masculinity is your capacity under pressure. And men were forged by environments that did not care how they felt. Okay? Situations like, famine, we have to feed the family, or the society as a whole, we've got to work together and take care of this. War, there are conflicts, armed conflicts between groups of people. Who's going to protect their family? Who's going to protect their city state? Who's going to protect, their town, whatever it is? Migration, again, big stressor. Things are very bad here. We must migrate to survive. Am I a liability or am I an asset in that effort? Disease, and in cases of like a pandemic and so forth, are you the person that can help other people, or are you the victim that requires help? Or collapse, societal collapse, when again stuff hits the fan. This happens in history throughout, all time, where societies just collapse, where things are going well and then they don't. Are you the person that is an asset that can protect your family and your loved ones and your town and your city and your state and your nation in case of a collapse? Is that you? Men existed to absorb chaos so others could survive, okay? That's what masculinity was about. That's why masculinity evolved traits that our modern society finds pretty uncomfortable. And what are these traits? What am I talking about? What are the things that modern, civilized, stable society, finds uncomfortable? So things like emotional restraint, the ability to put aside your emotions in order to do what you need to do, to be logical, totally logical even. Aggression, control. And by aggression, I mean controlled aggression. A truly powerful man is capable of terrible, powerful, strong, bad things, violence, etc. But a true man learns to control that, right? Because there's no place for that violence unless it's absolutely necessary. Again, in order to protect or shield loved ones, family, and so forth. So controlled aggression makes society very, very uncomfortable. The ability to have a certain degree of risk tolerance and be okay with risk. Our society is obsessed with safety. Everything has to be safe. When did we start telling each other, instead of have a nice day, I hope everything goes well, be safe? When did that happen? That happened in the last 10, 20, maybe 30 years, tops? When that became like an actual greeting, that says a lot about our society. When like you're telling people, instead of like have a great day or hope everything goes well, it's like be safe as the primary driver. That's crazy. Awareness of hierarchy. That's another one that modern society like finds very uncomfortable, that we understand our place as men in order to be effective or even work effectively together in a crisis situation. And the idea of sacrifice without applause. So doing the damn right thing because it's the damn right thing to do. Not because people are watching, not because of social media, not because it's going to end up on the news, but because it's the right thing to do. And you sacrifice, be it your comfort, your safety, even your life for the right thing. And it's not for applause. You do it because it's the right thing. These traits weren't constructed, okay? They were selected. Weak men died in the past. That's what happened. Indecisive men got other people killed because they couldn't make decisions. They couldn't like just go and make that decision. Emotionally unregulated men destabilize tribes, city states, nations, because they're emotionally unregulated, not logical. Modern masculinity discourse ignores this reality, and instead it's asking us, how do men express themselves authentically? That question would have gotten your ancestors killed. There's no time for that crap. Masculinity is not about expression. It's about containment, okay? Containment of fear, All right? Containment of anger, containment of desire, containment of ego. A man who cannot contain himself cannot control himself and therefore cannot protect anyone else, which is the core defining feature of masculinity. Okay. Second thought coming from this one is that strength is not aesthetic, it is moral infrastructure. So let's dig in a little bit. So here's a sentence that makes a lot of people like just short circuit, it fries their brain. A man without strength cannot be virtuous in any meaningful sense. Absolutely. Because virtue requires choice. If you're incapable of force, your peacefulness is irrelevant. You're just weak. You're just harmless. If you're incapable of confrontation, your kindness is 100% performative because you're literally unable to have a confrontation and resolve a conflict. If you're incapable of dominance, you being humble or your humility is absolutely meaningless because you are humble because you can't be capable of dominance. So you have to be subservient. So what is being humble there? You're not being humble. You're just useless. you, you're just incapable of establishing that dominance that in turn can be used to protect other people. So that doesn't mean that strong men are automatically good, by the way. Let's flip this on its head a little bit. It means only strong men can choose to be good. That's where the virtue is. Physical strength is the foundation of masculine psychology. Not because you're going to fight every day, but because your nervous system believes you can survive stress. Training under load, for example, does things therapy never will. It teaches your brain you can endure discomfort, actual physical discomfort. This is uncomfortable. This is physically uncomfortable. It's not a thought exercise. It rewires your stress response, okay? It prepares you for difficulty. It also inoculates you against panic because if you're not scared of this thing that could hurt you, you train yourself to be more resilient and, and not panic in a stressful situation, which is the last thing you want to do if you want to be able to help and protect others. And it replaces anxiety with evidence. So instead of thinking, what if, now you have a situation where you understand the what if. So you now have evidence of how am I going to react in a crisis situation or a difficult scenario. So, for example, a man who lifts heavy regularly is way harder to manipulate emotionally. He's already practiced suffering like voluntarily, like on purpose. Like, I choose to suffer doing this hard stuff that I do, lifting, exercise, whatever it is. And make no mistake, if you're not voluntarily suffering, you're involuntarily going to decay. Sedentary men don't become peaceful, they become anxious. Untrained men don't become gentle, they become fragile because they've never been tested. It's like the whole idea of that it's never been tempered, it's never been tested. They're just fragile. And fragile men moralize weakness because they have no alternative. They have nothing else to offer. They have nothing else to bring to the table. So, of course, they're going to come up with ideas of why weakness is actually the right moral choice. It's okay to look. Look, the gym is not about vanity. It's a school for stress tolerance, okay? And I know I always end up going back to bodybuilding, but it just applies to so many lessons, and especially in this masculinity discussion. So the gym is stress tolerance. It's school for that. It teaches you that in a practical, physical, applicable, measurable way. And stress tolerance is the root of masculine stability. Okay, the ability to tolerate stress, to be in a difficult scenario, keep your head, keep your cool, make the right choices, and be able to help other people and protect other people. That's where it is, okay? Third point that I want to make in this discussion or debate or make you aware of. Responsibility is the price of meaning. And what do I mean by that? So this is where most modern men might break right here. Men want meaning in today's society, but they don't want the burden of the meaning, right? They want the purpose, but without pressure. They want the status, but they don't want the sacrifice to receive that status, right? Or to earn that status. That's not masculinity, all right? That's being a teenager with a mortgage. Responsibility is heavy, okay? That's why it works. That's the whole point of responsibility. There are consequences, okay? Masculinity says something along the lines of, if something matters and I can influence it, it's my responsibility, even if it isn't fair. That's a very key element. Even if it isn't fair, it is what it is. It doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care about fairness. It is what it is. Weak men will outsource blame. It's not my fault. It's this, that, the other thing. That's not fair. Strong men will internalize that ownership. Hey, man, it is what it is, and I'm dealing with it, and I'm going to deal with it. This doesn't mean, by the way, self-flagellation and stuff like, oh, woe is I. None of that. What it means is that you're capable, you have agency. Okay? You mean that if you take responsibility, some of the things that you'll gain, by taking responsibility of your life and of things around you that need to that you need to take responsibility for, you're going to gain direction because now you know which way you're headed. You have a clear goal. You're going to gain some self-respect by doing something difficult. Okay. You're going to learn to be calm under pressure, which in the future is a teachable thing it's a skill to be calm under pressure. Perhaps your nature is not to be that as a default, but you can learn this. You can learn to be calm under pressure and become an asset rather than a liability in a stressful situation. And you can also, and you'll gain some psychological gravity. You'll be able to psychologically be stable because, again, you keep your head in difficult situations. You keep your cool. You keep your logic, your rational brain. A man who avoids responsibility then becomes probably nihilistic. He's easily addicted, to things because it's not my responsibility. Angry all the freaking time because, it's not fair, and chronically resentful because, again, they feel like they have no agency and these things happen to them and they can't do anything about it. So this is why I think, when I think about it, like, so how does this manifest in today's society? How do you see that, right? This is why so many modern men are obsessed with ideology, because ideology gives them the feeling of purpose, but they don't have to have the burden of execution. It's just an ideology. I'll just follow that idea. Those ideas are great. I'll just protect them and follow them and whatever. But there's no responsibility there. It's not like you have to, like, put your face forward and your life on the line for that ideology. You can just espouse it and say it from the mouth out, but you don't have to follow with action. Responsibility doesn't care about your opinions, okay? It demands action. Like I said, ideology doesn't demand action. You can just, give lip service to it. But true responsibility that doesn't care about your opinions demands action. You have to do things because you are responsible. And action, the ability to take action, the ability to recognize that you have agency and you can change things, that's what separates boys from men, okay? Boys can recognize that something could be done, but they might not be able to take the step. They're not ready. They're not men yet. A man will recognize the need. It's difficult, and he will do it. And that's what makes him part of what makes him a man, makes you masculine. This leads to our fourth point today. And this fourth point is emotionalism versus regulation. So why this whole feel your feelings is failing men. Let me expand on it a little bit like I've done with the other points. Here's another sacred cow that absolutely needs to be slaughtered. Men are not suffering because they don't talk enough, okay? They're suffering because they lack structure. Emotions are not the enemy, but they are not kings. Masculinity is emotional hierarchy. Your emotions are data. They're not directives. They are data. Let me repeat that. It's information that you are receiving, your emotional response. Modern culture, our modern, 21st century culture, It's teaching men to vent all the time. Oh, share your feelings, put them out there. Identify your feelings obsessively. That's the other thing. Like, oh, I feel angry, I feel hurt, I feel. And then center your emotional experience as your identity, which is insane because an emotion is just data. It's just data. You can't, center your emotional experience and be that the basis of your identity is absurd. It's data for you to decide. Your identity is you. You decide what your identity is. This creates men who are emotionally articulate, but they're functionally useless when they do this. Because, strong men, yes, we feel deeply for sure, but we don't let those feelings drive our behavior. Their data, that ability comes from the ability to recognize the data, the emotional input, and then make the logical choices rather than just the emotional reactive ones. Things that help with that help you develop the ability to handle that are, again, physical training because it prepares you to deal with adversity, sleep discipline because a clear mind, clear spirit allows you to make better decisions, nutritional stability, take care of your body. You only have one body. Like when you let yourself be like, fat, morbidly obese, you're useless. You again become a victim. And you can definitely not emotionally regulate because you're going to be depressed because you're a fat slob, you know? If you, if you're out of shape and you allow yourself to wallow and justify being out of shape, at least try to have some nutritional stability. Your hormonal health. Hormones will absolutely affect how you think and your capacity to be rational. So you've got to have that hormonal health in mind. This is why, the whole TRT debate and masculinity are so interlinked, for example, or hormone optimization, or even human optimization. These are all interlinked. And the idea is that you have a ritual and routine, things that you do that again center you. They help center you. These are practices, be it, I don't know, whatever they are, meditation, exercise, whatever it is. These are things that show discipline and the ability to do things that you might not want to do because they're the right thing to do, not because of like emotional dysregulation. A man who cannot regulate his internal state cannot lead himself. And if you can't lead yourself, you absolutely cannot help lead others or help other people. So, Stoicism, for example, a philosophy that I try to practice, it wasn't about emotional suppression, okay? It was emotional command. It was the ability to identify the emotional state, take that data and make the right choices and be pragmatic about it. That's why Stoicism works, honestly, as a especially for men, for masculinity. It definitely like dovetails beautifully with a lot of what we discussed. So, all right, on to the next point. The fifth point of this essay. Optimization is not vanity. It is maintenance of the weapon system. Sounds pretty impressive, right? This is where modern masculinity must evolve. Your ancestors optimized constantly, okay? They came up with better tools, right? They came up with better weapons. They came up with better logistics in order to be more effective. Better nutrition to last longer, be healthier, be more capable, be stronger, be uh, able to do things more effectively under stress, better recovery, after dealing with difficult situations, be they physical, mental, spiritual, whatever, they learn how to better recover so that they're prepared to fight another day and do this again. So optimization is not a new concept, okay? What is new is neglect. So if your testosterone is tanked, look, man, your discipline is going to suffer because testosterone helps you have that drive, that can do, that must do. If your sleep is broken, your impulse control collapses because you're exhausted, you're tired, you don't have the mental strength to make to to discipline your mind and make like non-impulsive decisions, make logical decisions. If your nutrition is garbage, your mood is going to destabilize. And again, if your mood is destabilized, how are you going to make logical choices? With your mood being like completely dysregulated. This is not philosophy, guys. This is biology, okay? This is just how these systems work, you know? If you're tired, like the chemical reactions in your brain are not going to be the same as if when you're fully rested, for example. So modern masculinity has to include the following for sure. This is my formula. Agree, disagree. Again, tell me in the comments. But these are the things that I would include in modern masculinity in order to improve and optimize. And you should always, by the way, day in, day out, one of your objectives in life is to always be better the next day. Relentless, continuous improvement should be a goal. This is not just for masculinity, this is for everyone. You know, you should always attempt to be better. But modern masculinity, in my opinion, must include the following facets. So strength training is non-negotiable. You have to be stronger, better every day and keep that strength as long as you can so you can be effective physically. Cardiovascular conditioning, same reason. You want to have a long, healthy life. If you're not strong, healthy, you're a liability. You're not an asset. You're not going to be able to like do any of the things that masculinity demands that you do. Nutrition literacy, understand nutrition, understand how it affects your body and your mind, and I guess technically in some ways even your spirit. Understand the difference between, eating healthy, being healthy. Again, this is for preparedness. This is for recovery. This is for lifelong balance so that you become more effective. Um, Again, dovetailing off of that, recovery discipline, learn how to recover, because as a man, you will be dealing with stressors. You're going to be dealing with difficult situations over and over and over again. But if you don't learn how to recover properly, you're going to be depleted and less effective and less effective. And eventually there might be a problem. So learning how to recover and having the discipline to do the practices required for you to recover is very important. And last, when necessary, hormonal optimization when it's appropriate. Because again, hormones affect how you think, hormones affect how you act, hormones affect how you feel. And these are all important things that you have to have regulated in order to become and be the best man you can be. And in order to have effective exercise and agency of your masculinity, you're going to need that hormonal optimization, okay? You need to have your body working with you, not fighting against you. And this is not biohacking culture, okay? This is responsibility to your potential. A man who refuses to optimize while preaching discipline is lying to himself. Optimization without mission, however, will create monsters. And that's why purpose has to always come first, because the purpose will shape the direction of that optimization. All right, next point. Polarity, feminism, and the consequences of weak men. Let's talk about this because this is important. You have to understand like the flip side, like what happens, the what ifs, when the part that gets, this always gets, I feel, in today's society, clipped out of context all the time or strawmanned to death. Feminism did not weaken men. Okay, guys? Men weakened themselves first. When men abdicate that leadership, women compensate. When compensation becomes permanent, resentment forms. When resentment hardens, ideology, which we talked about earlier, fills the vacuum. Masculinity and femininity are not interchangeable. They are complementary forces. They work together. They remove, so if you remove polarity and you remove attraction and you remove families. You remove families and you destroy civilizations. So did you follow that? Remove polarity, masculine, feminine, and you remove attraction, become adversaries. You remove that attraction and you remove families. There's no reason to have a family anymore. It's not complementary, completely optional. And if you don't have families, which is the core unit of any and all civilization, you remove that civilization eventually. Strong men don't fear strong women, guys. Okay? But strong women do not respect weak men that are cosplaying being enlightened and being like a male feminist or whatever it is. Okay? Women don't respect that. This is not misogyny, by the way. Let's just be clear on this. This is anthropology. This is how human beings operate. Okay? This is how we are as a species. Just recognize it. It's not a moral judgment. It's it's just the way it is. If you remove the attraction between the masculine and the feminine, and you remove the need to be together in harmony and create the family and create new humans who in turn will improve things. When we die, they'll take over, and then they'll have their own children, and those children will eventually grow up and replace them, etc. That's how you have a thriving civilization. You remove that and the family disintegrates, and that civilization just falls apart. It turns into a very, very sad descent into I don't know, navel gazing and a narcissism and a lot of the things that we see nowadays, where people are obsessed with themselves and how they feel. I am the most important thing ever. Really? Because eventually society will literally disintegrate if you get enough people like that. So think about that. All right, seventh point: weak men morality and authoritarianism. This one's important too, because they're linked, and this is one of those things that you don't see the linkage until it's kind of pointed out, and then you can't unsee it. So, as we said before, strong men self-govern. I don't need somebody else to tell me what's right or wrong. I am a strong man. I have my strong principles, backed by logic, reason. I protect others. I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. I can self-govern and self-regulate. Weak men, however, demand external control. And this is why declining masculinity correlates with more bureaucracy, moralized compliance, surveillance culture. Let's see what that other man is doing. I don't know if I like what he's doing. The infantilization of adults. Oh, the state will take care of that. You don't need to be making those decisions. Weak men always, always, always outsource discipline. Always. They don't want to be responsible themselves. The government, listen to the government. The government will tell you what to do. This is why it links so beautifully with authoritarianism. Weak men love collectivism. They love socialism. They love communism. They love a lot of those central command and control isms. They're big on that. Because, that way the discipline doesn't come from within. You don't have to do anything. I'm just being told what to do, and I'll just do that. It abdicates responsibility. It abdicates agency. It abdicates self-control. When internal order collapses, external control expands, right? So these weak men that have no internal order are very happy that somebody from the outside is telling them what to do, because then they don't have to decide. They can just follow orders and be meek and do what they're told. I mean, history doesn't lie, guys. You can see it over and over and over in history. History doesn't lie. It just repeats. It's just a cycle. And if we don't learn, we're bound to repeat it again. All right, guys. Now, my closing statement, thoughts for you to consider. And again, agree, disagree, tell me in the comments, debate me. I would love to hear some contrasting thoughts, because I'm by no means am I the be all end all of all knowledge. These are just thoughts that I find near and dear to me, and that are very important. But so my closing statement is this, or my conclusion after talking about this topic, for the last half hour. It's this: the standard must rise, or everything falls. Masculinity does not need to be softened. It needs to be trained. The world does not need safer men. It needs men strong enough to be good. Masculinity done right is these four things: it's dangerous, but it's disciplined. It's assertive, for sure, but it is restrained. It is optimized, but it is also principled. And more importantly, it is responsible without resentment. Kindness without strength, I say this again, this is important. Kindness without strength is irrelevant, because you're not kind, you're just meek, you're just weak. Okay? Where's the virtue of you being kind if you have no agency and no ability, and you're just a harmless mouse. There's no nobility there. Strength without restraint, though, is absolute chaos. And that's never good for you, for your family, or for society. And the solution to this issue of masculinity is not less masculinity. The solution is better men, more masculine, better men. That's what's going to make society better. That's what's going to help everybody. All right. And that's all I have. I hope that if nothing else, I gave you some ideas and thoughts to ruminate, to think about. Again, agree, disagree. If nothing else, I hope it was a valid thought exercise. I hope it was entertaining. Let me know your thoughts again in the comments. And if you have any feedback, please put it down there. I'll continue making videos like this, hopefully, that will entertain you. And I want to thank you for choosing to spend your time. So like, subscribe, do all the YouTube things if you want, so that I can continue doing this. And I hope you have a wonderful day. And I hope that this brought some value, or at least some entertainment, or at least some thought into your life. Maybe you learned something. Maybe you consider a different viewpoint. Maybe you disagree. But if nothing else, at least you were entertained, I hope. So thank you very much. This is Gonzo Herrero from Rise 41, signing out. I hope you have a wonderful day.